Beautiful late winter day. It's about 40 degrees. All layered up with all kinds of riding gear to stay warm. But so far it's comfortable. I have a remote application on my phone for operating the camera, but it tends to run the battery down very quickly on the cell phone. So I'm just turning the camera on and letting it run. I have a 64 gig SD chip in the camera, so it could run a long time before it fills up. And a brand new recharged battery, so I think I'm ready to roll. I suspect the wind noise in the helmet is going to mask a lot of the audio quality, but we'll see. Low temperature last night was about 16 degrees, but being February, it warms up pretty fast during the day. It's supposed to get up into the low 40s today, and even warmer tomorrow, although tomorrow it's supposed to rain, so I wanted to get a ride in today, enjoy the dry, clear weather. And up that road about 10 miles are some sand dunes on public lands that are a lot of fun to ride on ATVs and probably dirt bikes. I'm riding a 2017 Kawasaki KLR 650, and I have almost 6,000 miles on it. My second bike I've had in 4 years. My first bike started using oil pretty bad at about 25,000 miles. And I nursed it along to 34,000 and sold it. Didn't get much out of it, but got me a new bike now and it runs just fine. The exit here on to 395 goes to Spokane, Washington. That's up in the northeast corner of Washington State. About a 2-hour drive from here. It's a railroad yard for Burlington Northern Railroad, the track that goes up into Canada. So we're entering Pasco, Washington. The main commercial airport is off to our right here, serving this part of the Pacific Northwest. Closest commercial airport to Hermiston, where we live. There are a number of flights every day leave here for several different hubs: Seattle, Portland, airports in California, Las Vegas, Utah. Probably some direct flights into Colorado. Cities. Washington is the largest community to where we live, within about 200 miles. Spokane being larger, but it's further away. Portland is about a 3.5-hour drive from Hermiston, and of course it's much larger. Here we are crossing the Columbia River. This bridge is popularly known as the Blue Bridge in the Tri-Cities. We're going to stay on 395 here and go through Kennewick. Maybe stop for a cup of coffee. At times the traffic can be pretty heavy in this part of the Tri-Cities, but today it's not too bad. Good cup of coffee at McDonald's. And we'll go on through Kennewick, headed south on 395. If you're wondering why my bike is pointed towards the center lane, I learned that little trick from McRider. On the internet, he says you want to pull up in traffic with your bike pointed in an escape route. In case somebody rear ends you, it'll knock you forward and not into the car in front of you. Sounds like a good idea to me. Temperature's warming up nicely. Feels like it's in the low 40s, maybe even mid 40s. Off to the right is the Ride Now motorcycle shop where I bought this motorcycle. In fact, that's where I bought both bikes. My first one and this one. Each one cost me about $6,200, brand new. Thought that was a pretty fair price for a ride that I get 55 miles to the gallon and can ride anywhere. Lots of new development out in this part of Kennewick. Economy's booming here. Most everyone has a job. I like the climate in this part of the Pacific Northwest. It's on the east side of the Cascade Mountains, and it is relatively dry and warm. I'm going to pull over onto the frontage road rather than ride the freeway all the way back. There's practically no traffic on this road, and it parallels the freeway most of the way back to Hermiston. This is the interchange that connects to Interstate 82, which goes north up and connects with I-90. I-90 connects with Seattle and then points east through Spokane and Idaho, Montana. And if you take this freeway south, connects with I-84. And I-84 runs east and west. To the west is Portland, Oregon, and the Oregon coast. To the east, it goes towards Boise, Idaho, and Utah points further east. This is wheat growing country in here. Probably the major export out of the Pacific Northwest, or out of this part of the Pacific Northwest anyway. A lot of grain is exported to Asia and other countries. Barges come up the Columbia River from the Pacific coast load up huge barges full of grain, which are then barged to Portland and Astoria and loaded on container ships that ship them to the Orient. It's mid-February, and you can see the grain sprouts already coming up through the soil. By July, there'll be large fields of wheat ready to harvest. Most of the wheat is harvested over a period of about 2 weeks throughout the Pacific Northwest by huge combines, contract harvesters that come in and harvest millions of acres of wheat in a relatively short period of time. I only have about a little better than 3 years of riding experience on motorcycles, all being on these KLR 650s. And I must say they are very enjoyable to ride after you learn how to ride them. And that takes a while. If you've never ridden motorcycles like I had not 3+ years ago, I was rather nervous and clumsy on the bike, always having to think about what to do, how to stay safe, how to ride it in general. But after about 10,000 miles, it all kind of came together. Now pretty much everything you need to know comes automatically. You don't have to think about it, you just do it. But for those first 10,000 miles, there were a few times I wondered if it was really worth it. And of course it took at least a good year to get that 10,000 mile experience. And I have to say, I've never had a close call, never had an accident, or even a near accident. Now, I've dropped the bike a few times, but that's when it's standing still and it's least stable. Once the bike is moving, it becomes very stable. But I have a lot to learn yet, some of which I probably never will. Being a dual sport bike, it is designed to ride anywhere, including soft soil like sand and cross country, but I doubt if I'm young enough to learn how to do that. So I stick to paved roads, gravel roads, even some dirt roads that are packed. But I get a little nervous when the road surface or trail surface gets soft or real rough. Younger guys I ride with think nothing of it. They'll ride them anywhere, but not me. Hey, we're still in Washington, but we're south of the Tri-Cities. We're between the Tri-Cities and the state line. Once we cross the Columbia River Bridge up here, we'll be back in the state of Oregon. It's not unusual to see wildlife out here, deer, even seen herds of elk, upland game birds, pheasants, quail, coyotes. Coyotes are fairly common out here. These are called the Horse Heaven Hills. Probably given that name back at the turn of the century when this area was unsettled and there were wild horses roaming in these hills on the southern edge of Washington's going to have to pull off down here and get onto the freeway for a few miles in order to make it back to the bridge near Hermiston. This is the Coffin Road interchange. We'll be getting back onto Interstate 82 going south. We'll crank this little bike up to about 65 or 70 in order to safely stay up with traffic. And it does a pretty good job of riding along at even 70, 75, as long as it isn't windy. We do get a lot of wind in this part of the country, so when the wind is blowing, particularly if it's a side wind or a headwind, you gotta slow down. Anyway, as I was saying, I like the climate here because it's relatively warm and dry. You get very little precipitation. I think it averages about 15 inches a year. Most of that, however, is rain. Get very little snow, maybe once in every 6 or 7 winters we'll get